Welcome to the Living Loud and Proud podcast, brought to you by Disability Pride, Pennsylvania. If you need a link to the transcript for this episode, please visit our accessible website at www.disabilitypridepa.org/podcast. And now, here is your host.
Hi, folks. Producer Phill Rosen here for the Living Loud and Proud podcast Artist Series. I'm joined today by my co-producer Ray Horton to discuss a spoken word piece, Warriors, by Ian Fay. Hey, Ray and Ian. How's it going?
Hey. What's going on?
All right. Well, we're going to be talking about a spoken word piece by Ian called Warriors. And so for members of our audience who are unfamiliar with you, who is Ian Fay?
Ian Fay is speaking right now.
Hi, Ian.
Hi. Great intro. So I started doing like spoken word, almost 9 years ago. It's really been that long. So I started doing that. I started off in my high school's poetry club. My high school teacher basically bribed me to go to a poetry slam for a few extra grade points. And I did. And it did kind of change my brain chemistry. And it's been history ever since. I competed in slams when I was in high school. I eventually moved on to Babel Poetry Collective at Temple. Shout out Babel Poetry Collective if you're listening to this. And then, I started becoming like an in-house artist for House of Edge with you two, with Ray and Phill over here.
Yeah, he met Ray Deca.
Yeah.
Who took him to a whole other level. Oh, God. Okay.
But yeah, that's basically me. Other than that, I don't know. I did martial arts for like a good amount of my life, and I also like D&D and Magic and a bunch of other nerdy things. So yeah.
Yeah, he looks like the guy who played Iron Fist on the Netflix series.
I do, and I kind of hate it.
Yeah. Ooga.
Of all people to look like of all Marvel leads to look like, why that one? No offense to Iron Fist if you like it, but
I liked it.
Yeah.
Danny.
So, does your disability, does it feature heavily in your art overall? Or is it kind of secondary?
Oh, I'd say absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, it's I'd say it took a while for me to start featuring it heavy in my work. Because, as a little quote unquote quote, even though I don't like this term, high functioning autistic person, it kind of I was kind of messed up by that term for a while. It's
you don't say.
Maybe I could maybe I could not have this at one day. But
this will eventually lead into Warriors.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like up until that point, I was kind of hiding a little bit of that from my work. But then once I started to actually kind of talk about it, and some of my some of the people I was working with and some of my friends even said I'd really kind of come into my own as an artist, as actually starting to talk about this. And, I talk about other stuff beside it. I don't want to say it's the only thing that my work discusses. But yeah, I do even say it would feature very heavily in my work. In fact, someone at Babel called my writing style very pragmatic, interestingly enough, which I found kind of interesting. I feel
but it's evolving.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I have to say about that.
So, we are talking about Warriors. We're doing an analysis on it today. And you kind of touched on this, but, were there any other kind of influences to create the piece for you? any special inspiration or
Yeah.
like maybe other artists that help to breed it for you?
Yeah. So the first, I would say like the biggest influence I had was there was this like big, it was like this big annual poetry event that I don't know if it's still being run, but it used to be run, which was CUPSI, which is the College Union's Slam Poetry Invitational. It was like this big slam poetry tournament and like festival that used to be run. And in this they had like workshops. And like the one year where I was like, the one year where I was where it was being held at Temple, I had attended one of these workshops and it had like taken this and the workshop facilitator, Julian Randall, he talked about form and like poetry form, especially like how you literally construct the words like in a piece. And he went over this form that like completely like fully enchanted me, which was the golden shovel, which basically the idea is like you take a line from like anything. It could be like from a movie or like any, like it's basically like a sentence or anything. You basically align that with like the right margin of the poem.
Mm-hmm.
And like it basically is like every line of the poem ends with a word from that line.
Okay.
And I was like, that is insane, where you're like adding like whole new meaning to like something else that is like already out there. And I thought that was so cool. And one of the things I kind of went to was like one of the pieces I created like after this workshop was going back to this ad, this infamous like Autism Speaks ad called I Am Autism, where it's like this super weird in retrospect. Like it's just like this like ominous voice actor like playing autism, and like it's super ominous and super foreboding and like kind of intimidating, and then it's like this happy joyful like voiceover where of like a family, I guess, of like a kid with autism saying like, no, we're gonna fight back. And there were just like a bunch of lines that were like there was like a bunch of lines that were in that I had like made sort of pieces out of, and like one of them was here. So the line I had chose for this piece in particular is as follows, this is from the transcript of that same ad. We are a community of warriors. We have a voice. You think because some of our children cannot speak, we cannot hear them? That is autism's weakness. And that kind of struck me because I also noticed this kind of growing up, and like even like seeing like, you know, other families with autism, where it was like there was like this combative air around like caring for a child with autism that I noticed. Not in my family, thankfully. Like my family was like super supportive and like basically fought tooth and nail to get a lot of accommodations that I needed in like elementary and middle school. But like even calling parents like warriors when we're talking about like, you know, raising children with autism and like what that means and what the logical explanation of that is, or like the logical conclusion rather. And yeah, it was like, yeah, that's like the main inspiration of like, you know, I even say like, I even say this here, like, how do your children in the piece? I say this, like, how do your children just go from being them to like the enemy? You know, it's like, yeah, I'd say that's the big inspiration.
Yeah, of course. So, I guess, you know, you touched a little bit on the process, but, you know, is there anything more that you want to kind of talk about, like the process that you used to create this piece, Warriors? You know, and is it like kind of, do you have a typical process for how you create works or how you write?
I would say, I would say my process, I don't think is like anything too spectacular in the moment. you know, I like sometimes when I get ideas, it could take me like a like frenzied writing session at like 1 a.m. to finish it, or it could take like, a week or two. Like it kind of usually depends on like, how hard I'm like working at it. Working with like a form like this in particular was also kind of challenging, but I do find like challenges of like working with form like this kind of rewarding because like it's creating like, it's like making your brain work creatively in different ways, where if you're not like constraining yourself by like any sort of like form like this, you're not like kind of like straining like your creative muscles as much to like create like anything new. But like, because like you have these like extra constraints, I feel like it makes like, your brain like makes like new paths to like creating like new work like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So, the form of the golden shovel, did this kind of lead to any sort of like particular motifs throughout the piece, throughout Warriors, in terms of like, the way that you describe things or the way that, the metaphors you use?
Definitely a lot. Like, because like, well, I mean, like the fact that like one of the words like in this thing being like warriors and like this like kind of being, and like, yeah, like considering the fact that this is like calling themselves like a community of warriors, I definitely went to a lot of like war and like fighting kind of metaphors and stuff like that. I even mentioned like iron sights, like the sight on a gun almost. And these, like, that's just kind of where my brain goes to. And even like, and even just sort of like, I definitely went towards like, you think because some of our children cannot speak, we cannot hear them. Like, I definitely went towards that point a lot in like one part of the piece where I really try to like challenge that as much as possible. Where it's like, I even like kind of insinuating this piece. It's like, are you really hearing them though? Like, are you really like, are you actually listening? I definitely think that like having like the literal line, like being present in the poem, like in the writing itself. I think that definitely did inform a lot of like what I wrote into it.
Right. Yeah. And like those motifs kind of create this sort of juxtaposition, right? Of like, how people who ascribe to this particular philosophy really aren't understanding what's going on with their child or the individual in their life who is on the spectrum, right?
Yes.
And so trying to underscore all of that, really creates a powerful image. So it's like, is there anything else that you want to kind of talk about, like thematically, that's like important to the piece, or?
I mean, like, I think another thing I kind of wanted to bring up is like kind of something that I think underlines like a lot of my work, and also like I think the experience of like any autistic person as well, which is just like you can't really separate me from this disability, Like This has basically informed my life ever since I was born, even before I even learned like what that word meant, which was like in 3rd grade. And so like, I mean, yeah, maybe you could theoretically like, I'm doing air quotes at the people at home, cure me of this, but like, what's the cost of that?
Right.
Like, what is that going to do to me? And am I actually going to come out like as the same person, but like somehow more idealized and like what you want me to be? Or am I not going to be anything like you wanted at all? And like whatever level of respect that you were looking to find on the other side of this is gone anyway.
Right. Yeah. And, I also think that, it's interesting too, because like, with any kind of neurodivergence, right. It is a very individualized kind of thing, right? So like, you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, right? Rather than, like, you know, for me having ADHD, you meet one person with ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
you met one person with ADHD. You don't know the experience of anyone else who
Exactly.
is
It's
experiencing
all
that.
different.
So you know, kind of like the way that you put the themes together really underscores that
Mm-hmm.
in a really beautiful way.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously the meaning in the piece is all about kind of like this sort of warrior mindset of the parents. But you know, is there like any room for interpretation on like what you mean or what the stance is in
Give the
piece?
literal,
Or,
you know, I mean,
like,
literally say it, you know, what is saying. Because remember, there was, because we've been working on and off of this piece for what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
And remember how like I actually confused it at one point from what I had originally understood it as being? Then I had to like, wait a minute, hold on. No, this isn't it. You know, about, you know, the definition of what the warrior was, you know, and well, you know what? You explain it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's exactly like what Ray said, where it's like, this, like,
come on, you can do it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you kind of like did take the words right out of my mouth there, where it's like these parents are like basically fighting a war that's like one, not even really there.
Exactly.
And it's like,
you know, it's like
yeah,
they're
exactly.
condescending, looking for attention.
Mm-hmm.
Please call me a warrior because I am doing this. When no, it shouldn't even have to be like that. You should be just like, hey, this is good. I'm good. And remember how what we had said during one of the rehearsals for? I was like, so technically them not being these here, you know, condescending, you know, ooh, look at me, warriors.
Oh, yeah.
They're a warrior. Because
like,
they're able to fight this here, you know, oh, look at me temptation that so many others who are in the same shoes, you know, just can't seem to resist.
Exactly. It completely centers them rather than the people who actually need like, the accommodation.
You know, and it doesn't help that you have so many people like, oh, you're so brave for taking on this challenge with your child. For real?
Right.
And you're so brave because you're living with your autism. Seriously?
Right.
Come here. Let's go talk in this hallway right quick. Where did so-and-so go? They're taking a nap in the hallway. Don't worry. So let's get back to the subject. Yeah, because like I'll never forget, because like I said, it was so weird how I got twisted up, but that's what happens when you get old. And I was like, but technically they are being warriors for the simple fact that they're not falling into the trap and they are living their life the way they're supposed to with you and with the situation. It is not that deep, you know, where you have to go and act like it is a burden.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, I mean, like, God, anybody who's lived with me, I mean, okay, you could easily say it's a bird, but but we're overjoyed to be around me, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys better have been answering that one. Anyway, but but yeah, so do we have anything else? I mean, we did basically, did we really flesh it out, you know, the actual creation of this? Of warriors?
I mean, were
you like 25 or 6 to 4, you know, on the floor sitting cross-legged and everything? And...
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't have like a
Phill, add Chicago's sound effects from that song in there, okay?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't have like a specific process that felt like brought me to it. Just, you know.
And no specific one incident that happened. It was just overall lifestyle. Yeah, I can dig that. Yeah, I can definitely dig that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess kind of building off of that, you know, do you feel like there's a deeper purpose to your art in general, like to the things that you write? Or is it just, you know, they're very kind of, you know, heart on my sleeve, and that's like what it is.
Yeah. I feel like it's a bit of both. I do feel like it is definitely like, it's me, yeah, like heart on my sleeve type thing. But I do always like, whenever I have like performed and like performed pieces like this, I usually like, after like people are saying like, they're like, oh, that was such a good piece. And like, kind of like giving your compliments. I always walk away with at least one person saying like, yeah, I haven't really heard anybody like talk about this before in their work. And yeah, I'd say that's my higher purpose, where it's just like, even if like, and
awareness.
Yeah. Well, not even just awareness, but it's just like,
representation.
Yeah, I guess that's also it too. But like, I think my poetry coach kind of put it best, where it's like, like part of a good like thing of getting up there is like, if you have like 700 people in a room, there could still be like one person who like does need to hear what you're saying.
Right.
Like it could be useful for them.
Yeah.
And like that kind of perspective, and like the perspective you bring can like really like impact them on a level that like makes them think differently. And like, yeah, I'd say that's as good a higher purpose, I think, as you can get.
Yeah.
No, trust me. You talk to several other artists of varying, disciplines. They'll tell you the same thing. Well, those who are serious about it, and who are a human being. Yeah, that's the payoff.
Yes,
that is the real payoff. Knowing that you touched that one particular person or several particular persons.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you want to mention about Warriors? We're about to listen to a performance of it, of course, but, like, is there anything like specific about it or anything about like, the time in which you wrote it, anything like that?
Yeah. This was like a piece that I created in like 2021, which was like height of the pandemic. Pandemic kind of shuts down all in-person art events, and like I was like kind of isolated from my art form as a result of that, where I didn't really get a lot of like what's it called? I didn't get a lot of like more experience and like exposure to it during that time. So like creatively, I wasn't quite in the best place. I feel like, and I had also made these for like a grant as well during that time. And I do feel like that even in the midst of like that kind of like, kind of like bad place, like creatively that I had, I felt like that was like a good, like little, like oasis of that, where I got to create like some good pieces like this.
And
so
you still were able to perform it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even with the pandemic going on, through virtual concerts, and like you said, with the grant, which also ensured that this wound up becoming a published piece at that.
Yes. But yeah, I do have like a little bit of pride in this piece because of that, because, creating it in that like sort of space, and yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah. Actually, now I think about it, you said you wrote it for that piece, that grant. Was there kind of, I know there was like kind of a academic side to it, right? Like K through 12 or whatever. I know that you were
that's
like
the explanation as to why it's a published
12,
piece,
right?
Yeah.
But do you happen to know if there was a real like impact, through that program?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember like seeing like the book that I kind of like made for that like program, like being at like some like events, like specifically like disability pride events, like that was really cool to see. That was sick.
Remember, it's
like
also
that.
actually published and distributed at school.
That is also true.
Skills. Did I just say
skills?
Schools. I have not slept all day, people. Please forgive me. But yeah, Yeah. I had not slept for 2 days. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Schools, and yeah, I've heard some really great feedback from the organization that was handling that, with yours, particularly because it's a physical piece that they can hold, flip the pages through, read, where they want to, or if they want to kill time. Yeah. That there is a difference between wanting to or just killing time. And that wound up being both. And fortunately, both enjoyed, whether it was just killing time or wanting to read it. So it made quite an impression from what I understand.
Yeah, that's what I've also heard as well on that front.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of done everything we can to analyze this piece. So let's take a moment to enjoy performance of Warriors.
My parents are called warriors for raising me. Right? Like they're imagining these weathered veterans who fought for their child's soul. My parents are commended even for raising this boy in a layer of barbed wire skin. And this community would wave a banner of their idealized me as a victory. Never mind, of course, the only casualty is me. See, my parents are called warriors. It implies that autistic children are battlefields. They're like that to be raised, we have to be fought. No room to wonder if I could have a joyous life as the broken country they see. But my parents gave me a home, not war. And even when I was rendered silent, they fostered my voice. But I've seen plenty of other warriors. They fight for ghosts. That are children who never existed. It seems they think they are who their children should have been, and so because of this, their actual children join them. Now I know that somewhere once a week a caregiver erases a child off the face of the earth, and no one weeps. Chief of their excuses are, they all have days like this. That before the children are mourned, we must walk a mile in their shoes. How we cannot understand how hard it was. Children then go from being battlefields to the enemy. Speaking their cry for help is a war cry to a warrior's ear. And at this point, we see warriors treat them as target in iron sight. When they cannot reconcile with. When they strip the human from. And I hear they dare call their children silent. As if they even tried to hear them. See, I was never a tragedy. I was never a war zone. I was never that much in need of mercy killing. I was never stolen or missing. I was only ever thankful not to be preyed on. That my autism's presence wasn't a mark for death. That my parents never saw it as a weakness.
All right. Oh, man, that was amazing. That was Warriors again. That was great, Ian.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
definitely enjoyed.
Yeah. That was the first episode in the Living Loud and Proud podcast artist series. We're going to have more of these coming through down the pike. We'll hope to see you then. All right. Bye, everyone.
Good night, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Please visit our accessible website at www.disabilitypridepa.org. You can find us on social media at Disability Pride PA on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.